Heather, hey, welcome to Mom Life.
Oh, this is so fun. I love that you're doing this.
Well, listen, I know that you know this, but you can be surrounded by little people and you can still feel isolated. And here I am as an empty nester, and I will tell you that can be a whole new kind of loneliness. And so I look at you as a guru on relationships and things. You might be shaking, I see you shaking your head, but was finding moms to kind of do life with a struggle for you?
So I would say when I started my mom journey and I had a little baby newborn, I was the one who hosted the play dates.
Okay.
So I gathered people together, but as I added another boy and yes, another boy.
Boy, mom, times four.
Times four, I found myself isolating more and more. And so I was isolating, which then led to loneliness because, well, I'll get to the because, but I think that in that moment of having 4 young boys and spending less and less time with moms, I was choosing to take on all the burden of motherhood.
Wow.
Alone. And the reason why is as I had more boys and the pressures increased and my inability to control them became very apparent, and my reaction and responses were maybe a little not what I wanted, let's just say. Moms get it. The anger is increasing. My capacity to respond well is decreasing. I had friends around, but I chose to not reveal the most vulnerable, authentic parts of myself. So I was surrounded by people and still lonely. And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves, is they may be going to church, they may be in a small group, they may be in a mom group or at the playground, but they're not really revealing the challenges they're under or the lies they're believing. And so they're isolating and then find themselves lonely.
So that lack of willing to be vulnerable can create that isolation. Okay, I would think that works at any relationship dynamic, but you have a special heart for moms.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important that we don't, as your book title, Don't Mom Alone, why do moms need each other?
I think that we have believed a lie that how our kids turn out is completely our responsibility. So I carried that weight.
Yeah.
It's all up to me. I didn't invite people in. And it took a long time to even truly believe that God was the one who was ultimately forming who they were becoming. And I was a part of that. So I would rather believe I'm important, but not essential. And the more moms I interact with, when I tell them that, they're like, no, I am essential.
Yeah.
I am essential. And I'm like, well,
Are you?
are you? Because I have mom friends who their birth mom sadly wasn't a part of their story. And they still became adults. And they still found the Lord. And they're still doing ministry. And we allow for that storyline and that narrative, but what if we applied that to our own stories as moms?
Yeah.
So I've come through a lot of my own counseling because I hit rock bottom with 4 boys. I finally maxed out on my ability to handle all the things and had a panic attack. And that moment forced me to seek people and to move out of that isolation, that loneliness, and went to counseling, joined a small group, and our small group was going through 12-step, which we often like to think is for addicts.
Right.
But it's not. It's all of us have patterns, and just kept moving through and recognizing, wow, there is space for people in my life that I have been pushing them out with lies I'm believing about myself and about others. And so I just really long for moms to embrace this season of motherhood, that it's a refining for you too, kind of figuring out what lies you're believing and patterns you have. And people can cause a lot of wounds, but they can also bring a lot of healing.
But how do you find that life-giving community?
So I think with moms, we often talk about mom guilt. And I think mom guilt is what drives us to not seek that life-giving community because we've created these to-dos that make a good mom.
Yeah.
But I love to talk about mom shame. Mom shame sits on the shoulders of mom guilt and says, not only did I do something wrong according to this list of rights, but I am wrong. And I have found in life-giving community, and I'm going to get to how to find it in a second, it's the kind of community that disrupts that mom shame. Thinking I did something wrong. Let's say I have anger. Anger in itself is not wrong. It's a feeling. We're made in the image of God. He has feelings. But I yell. okay, that's not the best way to handle the anger. So that's the mom guilt. Shame is me lying on my pillow at night that says, I am wrong because I'm a mom who has anger, who yells at her kids. But if I have this life-giving community, a safe space of women that I have over time cultivated, I can come to them and say, hey guys, I'm struggling with this. And you know what? Most of those women can identify with that challenge, and they see me, and shame likes to isolate, but they say, you are loved, you are known in the midst of that challenge, and that heals me. Yeah. That is what brings me out of that isolation and into group dynamics and community.
And that takes courage to go to that group and say, like, how does the mom who is in that wrestle, knowing she wants the life-giving friends, the community, but also feeling that weight, where does she find the courage to just take that first step?
I think vulnerability breeds vulnerability.
Okay.
So I have to go first. It's worth the risk of rejection to vulnerably connect to others. And I think it also includes work we need to do on what are we expecting from people that only God can provide. So sometimes we're not doing the work to recognize, okay, there's an unmet need in me. And yes, people can fulfill a portion of that need, but my ultimate identity and worth needs to come first from God. Yeah. And people are on top of that. That's like the icing on the cake. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think, yes, we have to recognize people can't be everything when it comes to the vulnerability. We can't also be sharing with everybody everywhere. Yeah. And I think you do little test vulnerability nuggets, is what I call it.
A test vulnerability nugget, okay?
A nugget. You go to coffee or you're at the playground or wherever, sidelines of a baseball game, and you kind of share something a little bit
bad,
a little bit hard. Maybe a struggle you have with a parent, or maybe an issue that came up with one of your kids. And you see, how does the person handle it? Do they listen? Are they identifying? Or are they shutting you down and giving advice and telling you what articles to read? Do they change the topic really quickly? And it's like, oh, duly noted. This is not my person.
Yeah. But what is your person, okay? So not the person that's changing the topic or giving you advice. What, like if I come to you and I say, I lost my temper again, it's the third time this week. What am I looking for you to say?
A lot of moms they aren't aware of their own feelings. And if you gave a space where you could help her figure that out, and then say, man, that's hard.
Yeah, acknowledging that it is hard.
It's hard. Or I've had a similar situation, and I totally can understand how you feel. That's identification. And then it's asking, what do you need? What do you need from me? Because how often are we very aware of our kids' needs and very unaware of our own needs? Yeah. And to help someone get to that place. And then ultimately, I love praying a blessing prayer over someone if we're in a conversation, especially if it's someone I know well enough that wouldn't be super uncomfortable. But I've even done it with a dishwasher repairman. So and blessing prayer is where I listen to God and pray what He's telling me, and I pray that over someone instead of deciding what I think they need me to pray.
Oh, that is such a great word, to just be attentive to what God might be showing you in this moment for this person, not having a pat formula that works for everybody.
Because how much nicer would it be to show up in a friendship and you know that you can say anything and it will be received without judgment, and that you can also not only dump on somebody, but receive support and encouragement, and it can be brought to the only one who can actually change our hearts and minds.
So good, so good. Well, something we hear a lot from our friends at Mom Life, people will write in, they'll ask, how do I even find an older woman to be friends with, to disciple me, to mentor me, to come alongside me? Because we can live in our little silos. Like, speak into that. How do we find those intergenerational connections?
I'm very thankful that we attend a church that highlights the generations that go before, mentoring the next generation. And I have a woman in my life who had 4 boys that are grown now and all married, and that she and we had lunch just the other week. But how you find it, I think, one, if a woman's listening right now that is one of those women who are on the older side of her story, or
someone like me. Yes.
maybe walked through some things. My thing too is you're older if you've been through the stage.
Yes,
So
that's
if you have
true.
a 1 week old,
Yeah.
the mom who's about to give birth, you're a mentor to
Yeah,
her.
we call those friend tours.
Friend tours.
Friend
I
tours,
mean,
because you've been through it, and
if
you
you've
can-
been through it, you're one step ahead. You offer perspective, which is what I think. But oftentimes, the ones who can give perspective undervalue their significance.
Absolutely. I mean, my peers are like that. Like, we're like, what do we have to add?
Yeah, and even if they think they didn't do it well, they dismiss their ability to speak into the woman's life who's a step behind them. And I just want to encourage those moms. You have so much to offer.
Yeah.
And there are so many women, because here's the deal. Our culture right now is full of information. So much information that our moms didn't have. They maybe had one book, Dr. Spock, in the Bible,
Right.
to guide them in motherhood. And we have so much, too much. They need wisdom
From a real person.
from a real person who knows their story. And that's what I say too, women who listen to the podcast. I'm like, you need a church body. You need women in your community who know your unique story and who can walk with you to discern your steps. Because even if the mentor has been a step ahead, it's maybe not even the same path you should go on. So they need to be the type of person who's going to lead you back to God to discern your path. But I think it's so vital. I am such a strong proponent of having friendtors, mentors.
Well, and I think sometimes for the older women, it's intimidating to feel like not only do I not necessarily know all the answers, which older mom, you don't have to know all the answers. But the other stumbling block, I think, is we can think it's so official. Like,
Yeah, daunting.
am I gonna have to meet once a week for coffee on a Tuesday?
My advice is always try one time.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I would love to meet once. I mean, even be that specific.
Yeah.
Could we meet once for lunch? And I'd love to pick your brain on this specific thing.
Yeah, so for the younger woman who's watching who might be going, nobody's offering, or I don't see that, what's on her to do?
Yeah, I think one, you pray. I do think God will open your eyes to see the person, and you'll have a random encounter in a hallway. I mean, it happens. And then you offer a single time. They're not committing to
Right.
stick
One
with
time.
you till your child walks down the aisle.
Right.
One time, and be very specific on what you're looking for. Is it help with your marriage? Is it help with your home? Is it help with your career and balancing a work-life balance? What is it specifically, so that that person sees their value, because you've seen something in them. I see that you do this really well. I'd love for you to come alongside me and help guide me in that.
Yeah, or even just take a walk behind the stroller together.
Oh,
it doesn't have to be we
yes,
gotta
walk the neighborhood with
get
me.
coffee because then I have to get a babysitter or any of that. So,
No, I loved when my mentor would just come over and the boys would play in the backyard. Yeah.
So good. Friends, I want to tell you about another resource from Focus on the Family made especially for parents, Age and Stage. This program provides all the resources you need, tips, tools, articles, blogs. It takes your children from when they're born all the way through adulthood, and all from a biblical perspective. You'll find the link in the description below. Now, back to the show. Well, let's shift the conversation just a little bit because mom to mom, friend to friend, what do you do if you're with other women and the conversation is just not that edifying or that life-giving? Like, how do you change the channel?
There was a season when I was struggling with, here's the church word, gossip, right? Talking about other people. And I had to recognize that it was my own discomfort with being vulnerable. I didn't want to talk about me. Let's talk about Susie and all of Susie's issues. And that made me feel like I'm close to you.
How can we pray for Susie? The worst.
That's the worst. But it's like, I'd rather talk about Susie than myself. So I had to create a challenge for myself of I'm only going to say it to her face. So if Susie's not here, we're not talking about Susie, even if it's positive. Oh, did you hear Susie's son made the varsity soccer team? I'm not even bringing up Susie or her son if I'm with Jody, because me bringing up someone else inhibits our ability to go deeper.
Yeah.
And I would much rather, even if your husband comes up, well, I want to somehow bring the conversation back to your part in it.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about that job transition? How does that impact your experience? And what do you need from me? Like,
Yeah, so that's why you're such a good friend, because you focus on the person you're with. That's beautiful. That's a
But
great
that
lesson.
comes from a really not doing it well for a long time.
Okay.
And I have to keep that little say it to her face is a little reminder of like,
Yeah.
you know.
So Heather, let's talk about stay-home moms and work outside the home moms, because we all have ideas. And what do we need to know about each other, for starters?
Yeah, I think part of this don't mom alone situation is we are all in it together. We are raising the next generation. This is a big deal. And if you are all believers, if you have a kingdom mindset, this isn't about my child beating your child out on a team, or my child getting into that school and your child not, or whatever my child's wedding looks like. This is about all of them becoming men and women of God who are in kingdom business. So if that's true, I need to be for their thriving as much as I am for my own kids thriving, no matter what we do during the day.
Yep.
And I think that we need those wars to stop, because I think it's the enemy trying to keep us distracted. And I also think some of the guilt that can go on either sides, whether it's guilt for leaving a career that we've built or guilt for not being with kids enough, is again this standard we've created of what makes a good mom that didn't exist 500 years ago. I mean, it's a very first world
Right.
question to even that we have a choice in the matter. And oftentimes in our storylines, it's not a choice. And so to love one another in whatever our roles are, whether it's working outside their home or in the home or part-time working, or even me being here in Colorado Springs, I have moms that have helped me out, and we're all for each other,
Yeah. Love
for
that.
our kids' best.
And what about that mom who is at home with little kids and feeling like, I went to college,
Yeah.
I have all this to offer, and I don't feel seen right now. And am I wasting? You went through that, didn't you? A little bit early in your motherhood journey, and you had all this career training.
Yeah, I mean, I was pre-med bio. I was going to go to med school, and then I went and got a fancy speech pathology degree. And then I'm home with 4 little kids, and everybody else is getting opportunities, and I'm just wiping bottoms and cleaning
feeling
up
like life is
messes and
passing
life
you by out
it's-
the door.
It feels like you've been benched. And I think that that is the lie of the culture. I don't feel like any space is a mistake in God's mind. And even if they feel like prisons, I mean, I've walked through seasons. My mom was very ill. My dad passed away. I had all these young kids, so I was sandwiched kind of early in the taking care of parents and kids. And I feel like God met me right there. And it was such a time of suffering and hard, but a beautiful time of relationship with him that I wouldn't trade. Yeah. And so I think we look to Paul, who was in prison, and how he responded. I mean, he literally was in a space you would not want to occupy, shackled, and he sang praises. And it's because he knew who God was outside that space. And if we just continue to trust that God is doing something in his perfect timing, we will be delivered, whatever that's going to look like. It may not be how we want it to look, or can't even imagine what it would look like. I doubt Paul imagined the walls would shake.
I doubt that too. I doubt that too. Oh, I love that picture of praising in the space where you are and awaiting the timing. That is really good advice. And I'm just going to ask you this, because you have interviewed thousands of moms on your Don't Mom Alone podcast, and you've talked to all these women. What is some of the best mom advice you've ever been given or you've ever heard?
It's hard to whittle it down, but I would say we overcomplicate things.
We do.
We overcomplicate things. I think it was being with a mom in Mexico, and she was 11 years old, holding a 1-month-old baby. And I saw love and I saw care, and she was a good mom.
Wow.
Everything else we're just adding and
love.
overcomplicating.
The love and the care, so don't overcomplicate.
Yeah.
What a good word. Heather, thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
I am honored to be here. So fun.
Goes so good. Well, Mama, you have heard it. We are created for connection. We don't have to mom alone. Here at Mom Life, we want you to be part of our community, and one of the things we do together is we pray. You can click the link in the description below and find a collection of 6 powerful prayers that you can use to pray about some of the very things Heather and I have been talking about. They're new each episode, so just click that link, download it, pray with us, and know you're not alone. We're all doing this together, and God sees you. So hang in there, Mama.